What's the deal, everybody? It's your boy Shane G. We are back once again with another episode of Politics as Usual. Please make sure you like, you share, and you subscribe for all the latest content right here on the Ethos Media Network. Now, what we're going to get into today is another Joe Rogan clip. Now, this one is very important for a lot of reasons. I feel like, especially with everything going on right now with the whole Israel, Palestine, Hamas, Benjamin Netanyahu situation. I'm naming them all four separately for a reason. But David, what's my man's name right here? Dave Smith. Dave Smith. He's on the show a lot, actually. If you watch Joe Rogan, you see his face all the time. He's gonna say some things that I feel like a lot of people don't realize about the whole thing, and I just felt like it was a great clip, and he kind of expresses everything a little bit better than maybe I did on the last video I did about this. So I just want to play this and react to it.
A conspiracy theory. If you have this is going to sound like a conspiracy theory if you haven't heard this before, but this is totally 100% true, and it's been run in the day after on October 8th. There was a big piece in the Times of Israel about this. There was a front page of Haaretz. These are big newspapers in Israel, and if you want to, you can go to antiwar.com. My boy Scott Horton and Connor Friedman just wrote this great piece about this, and they've got all the quotes in it, so you can just go read it for yourself. And this is in their own words that this is admitted that it was Benjamin Netanyahu's strategy for years to prop up Hamas. Specifically,
now that's interesting, right? It was his strategy for years to prop up Hamas. Why would Benjamin Netanyahu, the leader of Israel, want to prop up Hamas, a giant terrorist organization that allegedly wants to kill all the Jews on earth? Why would he funnel them money and make sure that they can exist? Why wouldn't he exterminate them pretty much immediately once they started, gaining any sort of traction in the media or, gaining any sort of following? Like, why wouldn't you squash that? You have the whole United States military on your side. Why wouldn't you just do that? Right? This is why.
Because then there would be no negotiating a state for the Palestinians, because no one in the international community is going to look at Hamas, this terrorist organization, and say, yeah, we recognize them. So the plan was to undermine the more secular Palestinian Authority types so that they wouldn't be in control. Hamas would be in control, and then no one would ever negotiate their state.
So do you understand what he's saying right there? What he's saying right there is the reason that Benjamin Netanyahu and the country, or the state as it's referred to, of Israel, is why would they prop up Hamas? The reason why they wanted to prop up Hamas is because they knew that if they were able to successfully conflate Hamas with your average Palestinian, and Hamas is a terrorist organization, then obviously nobody would want to go in there to negotiate with Hamas to try to settle for a two-state solution between Palestine and Israel, because then essentially we would be saying we're going to give a country to a group of terrorists. That's the argument. So he's saying that in order for us to not allow for those negotiations at all, what we're going to do is we're just going to prop up this terrorist group, let the whole world see their actions. Everyone's going to be like, man, they're terrible, they're horrible, they're terrorists. We got to do something about that. Then Israel basically has carte blanche to do what they're doing now. Does that make sense to everyone? Like, because that's what's going on.
So just to be clear here, this is, and by the way, I mean, you can find direct quotes from Benjamin Netanyahu saying this in his own words, saying that you must support Hamas. We must continue funding and supporting Hamas so that they can never get a state, specifically for that intended reason. So basically what Benjamin Netanyahu did was for years prop up this terrorist organization.
And I think he's going to get into it here in a moment. And I just want to make sure that we're sticking around to listen to this part, because he's going to get into where everybody goes back to. Most reasonable people on this issue are going back to like 1947, which is in the modern version of this war when it started. it's only a certain segment of the population that are only going back to October 7th and saying Hamas just randomly, bombed Israel for no reason at all. It was just out of nowhere. They just hate Jewish people, and that's the end of the story. Like, that's only true if you start at October 7th. But if you go back, like David is about to do here, and you go actually back to 1947, and then a different agreement that was reached in 1967, which is never brought up, you realize that the Palestinian people, not Hamas specifically, but the people who are Palestinian in the Gaza Strip, those people are not being unreasonable with what they're requesting. They're requesting less than what they started with after their land was stolen from them originally.
And then failed to defend his people from them on October 7th. And it's just, I'm
actually going to run that quote back because that was really good.
What Benjamin Netanyahu did was for years prop up this terrorist organization and then fail to defend his people from them on October 7th. And it's just, it's mind-boggling to me that this element gets left out of the conversation in America. But by the way, it's not left out of the conversation in Israel. Like, their newspapers are all talking about this, how this plan blew up in his face. But it's really, this is what happened here. It's not that there's this desire at the highest level of the Israeli government, because this is what they always say. We have no partner for peace. We have no one who's willing to negotiate with us, but it's just not true. And every time they have had somebody who steps up, and look, just to be clear here, when I was talking about 1947, 1948, how Israel, like the state of Israel was created, then in 1967, when they took control of everything, what everybody always says, I shouldn't say what everybody always says. There's people who say crazy stuff. But what Arafat said once he rejected terrorism, even what Hamas said when they first, gained some power in Gaza, was 67 borders. They want to go back to the 67 borders. So they're not saying we want 100% of this back, at least at those points in time. They were just saying, give us our 22% back. You know what I mean? And
think about that. They're not asking for everything back. They're asking for 22% more land than they have currently, which would be the borders that were established in 1967. Now, what happened was Israel took it upon themselves to use their military to take over more land than they were actually supposed to. Israel's way bigger now than it was when it was first established in 1947. So that's what he's talking about.
Let us be an autonomous, independent nation.
So what would have to happen for that?
Well,
first of all, that seems like there's no way Israel's going to accept something like that.
It seems that as long as the Likud party's in, I don't think so. I mean, I think,
for those that don't know, the Likud party is like the right-wing conservative party in Israel. So they would be like our version of really all of them, but technically, I guess they would be like our Republicans. But really, it's both.
What you really need is like the Likud party and Hamas have got to go. And like a new generation, of leadership has to come into power somehow. And there has to be like a desire to actually end this thing.
Is there any support in Israel for this idea that they should give them more land and that they should give land back?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, there has been for years. There's always been kind of like the liberal wing of Israeli citizens who are totally against building the settlements in the Palestinian territory, who are oppose the occupation, who are for return to 67 borders. I mean, look, Yitzhak Rabin.
All right. So that lets you know right there that it's not a Jewish thing. It's not a Jewish versus Muslim thing, because as he just stated, there are more left-wing or left-leaning citizens in Israel who are against everything that's going on right now, and they recognize why it's happening. He said in their newspapers, they're acknowledging flat out that Benjamin Netanyahu's plan didn't work. They're acknowledging all of this in Israel. It's only us that are fully propagandizing it and basically all Israel or nothing. That's some American shit. That's not even some Israeli shit. So it's really interesting why that propaganda is so strong over here when the people that it's directly affecting in Israel, there's a large portion of them that don't feel that way. What do you guys think that is? I always go back to propaganda because that's like the strongest drug in America to me, because it's amazing how many facts are out there and how much information is out there and how much provable lies are out there. Like, you can play a video of somebody saying one thing, and then you can play a video of them saying the exact opposite thing, and then you can play a third video of them explaining why they said the opposite thing in the first video than they did the second video, and then nobody calls them liars. It's insane. So, you know, it's propaganda is a strong drug. It really works. You know, that's but what I will say though is more information is always better. That's why free speech is a good thing. That's why, you know, you shouldn't really be in favor of censorship, because although social media and different companies have definitely tried to suppress the pro-Palestinian voices that are out there, there's too many of them, and they're out there anyway. There's too many pro-Palestinian voices. Too many people see this for what it is. You know, there's only a few people that I've seen realistically on like my Facebook and on my social media that are like super pro-Israel. The majority of people are either not saying anything or they're acknowledging Israel's wrongs. I'll put it like that. They're not necessarily going to say they're pro-Palestinian because, again, propaganda has conflated Palestine with Hamas. But a lot of those people just are not cool with what Israel's doing, at least. You know, they're like, hey, you know, yeah, it's not cool to bomb, but, you know, we kind of get it. That's where it seems like most people are now. So I ran across that video on, you know, online, and it just definitely seemed interesting. And I definitely wanted to bring it up to you guys to see, you know, what your thoughts were on it. You know, I covered Rogan a couple of times in the past, and that wasn't really more Rogan. That was really more Dave Smith explaining the situation there. But, you know, I try to keep it fair. You know, when they post a good clip of something that I agree with, I want to speak on that. You know, just like if they post a clip I disagree with, like when they're talking about, you know, bow down to the cops, basically, you know, and all of that kind of stuff. Like, obviously, I'm being a little hyperbolic there. They didn't say that, but, you know, there was a very pro-police video on saying how we need to honor and respect police, and there would be less, you know, negative interactions between cops and citizens if citizens didn't escalate things, and like, you know, just that kind of thing. So, you know, I disagreed strongly with their takes on that one. But this is totally accurate from all of everything I've ever read, all of the information I have, all the information that's out there. You know, if you really do the proper research and go back to 1947 and the reason that Israel was created, yeah, it all makes sense. So, like I said, you know, this was a good video. Shout out to Joe Rogan. Shout out to Dave Smith. Shout out to you for watching. This is Shane G. This is the Ethos Media Network, and this is Politics as Usual. We'll be here next Saturday, and catch us on Monday for bar exam. Catch us on different days for different things, man. We just got a lot going on, you know, so we'll catch you on the next video. Peace.